It's just that first note on the Trident piano takes me straight back to that first time I've heard it. That sends a sort of chill down your spine.
You know that song if you hear it?
It's the number one.
I can't listen to that without the hair standing up on the back of my neck. Ronno's string arrangement is incredible. And the icing on the cake of all of that is David's amazing vocal.
She could spit in the eyes of fools if they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is their life on Mars?
Life on Mars by David Bowie is one of the greatest songs of the 20th century. Written and recorded way back in 1971, it's come to be regarded as one of Bowie's signature songs.
It's on America's tortured brow that Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow.
I'm Martin Kemp, and I've always been a devoted Bowie fan, and have often wondered just how he created such a masterpiece. So over the next hour, we're going to be exploring Life on Mars. I've enlisted the help of music expert Tris Penner, and between us, we're going to be looking in more detail at this famous Bowie song. Welcome, Tris.
Hi, Martin. Over this last year, Bowie has quite rightly been talked about as an important cultural icon of our times. Sometimes, though, with all the focus on the makeup, the hair, the outfits, the proclamations and the performances, I think that we forgot what made him so very great in the first place, his incredible songs.
Now, we've been given access to some exclusive material from the archives that revealed just how his genius was emerging. Plus, I sent Tris off to meet some key people in Bowie's early life who were with him when he wrote and recorded Life on Mars, and can give us just a small glimpse into the world of David Bowie, the songwriter.
It's London, 1968, and David Bowie has already had 4 record deals, but hasn't become the dreamt-of pop star as yet. He was signed to leading music publisher Essex Music, which promoted and sold his songs, and working there was Jeff Heath.
I came back from Mid-Em with 2 French songs in my bag. One was Je t'aime, and the other one was Comme D'Habitude. Je t'aime clearly didn't need any English lyrics because you could understand exactly what they were doing on the record. But Comme D'Habitude definitely needed some English lyrics.
Ma main caresse tes cheveux, presque malgré moi, comme d'habitude. Mais toi, tu me tournes le dos, comme d'habitude.
I had a publisher in London who sent me a French song, and he said, "Would you want to try and supply an English lyric to this?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be good exercise." So I wrote a lyric for it called "Even a Fool Learns to Love."
There was a time, the laughing time, he took his heart to every party, they'd point his way. How are you today? Will you make us laugh? Chase our blues away.
The lyrics of Even a Fool Learns to Love were about a clown and how the easy laughter that he wins in performance is kind of subjugated when he falls in love.
Nicholas Pegg, the author of The Complete David Bowie.
the clown turned round and saw her smile, oh, how she loved me. She'd clap her hands and beg me stay, to make her laugh, to make her life gay. And when you hear the demo versions of this that Bowie recorded, simply by singing over the original French recording of it, you can hear a real passion in his voice. There's a palpable sense that Bowie really wanted this gig.
The clown turned around, and there she stood. Oh, how she loved me. She'd clap her hands and beg me stay, to make her laugh, to make her life gay.
We had many goes at getting the right English lyric. We had Herbie Kretzmer, who, if you remember, has also written a few English lyrics like Les Miserables. And then, of course, David's attempts. Sadly, that didn't work either.
But I thought I'd make a few bob out of it. But I didn't. Next thing I heard, it had been done, rewritten again by Paul Anka, and it came back as My Way, and Sinatra had done it.
And now the end is near.
When we heard that Frank Sinatra had recorded it, to be honest, we were horrified, because there was this American singer that was kind of coming to the end of his career.
Which I'm certain I've lived.
When the recording finally turned up, I think we all said to ourselves, boy, did we get that wrong.
And
My Way became Frank Sinatra's signature tune.
And more, much more than this, I did it my way.
I was so pissed. And so I thought, God, I could have done with that money. I thought, I'll write my own then. And so I wrote Life on Mars, which was sort of a Sinatra-ish parody, but done in a kind of a more of a rock style. So here you are. This is My Way of My Way.
Of course, Bowie didn't actually get around to writing his My Way of My Way until 3 years after Even a Fool Learns to Love. Life on Mars was the final track recorded for the Hunky Dory album in 1971. And on the back cover, next to the song title, is the dedication, inspired by Frankie. But listen, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Tris?
Well, by 1971, David Bowie had changed management and music publishers and was looking for a new record deal. He also made his longed-for first trip to America, which inspired him to write many of the songs for his next album, Hunky Dory.
I did so want to feel out of place. I so wanted to be up there looking as though I should have really been in Greenwich Village. But I felt absolutely right for the part, which then convinced me that I should get back to what I really like doing, which is being theatrical on stage, but putting on a show. I started to try it all over again, and I formed a little band, and I started writing different kinds of numbers. And eventually we came up with the album Hunky Dory.
She's so swishy in her satin and tan, in her frock coat and bibbidi-bobbidi hat. Oh God, I could do better than that. Oh yeah.
He'd come back so fired with enthusiasm and energy.
Bowie biographer and archivist Kevin Can.
Everything was starting to come together, that knowledge of constructing a song, constructing a lyric, and then the songs just poured out.
The whole Hunky Dory album reflected my newfound enthusiasm for this new continent that, had been sort of opened up to me. And also I was listening to the music of a lot more Americans that were really not mainstream. People like Biff Rose is reflected a lot in the style of songwriting.
Unheard since it was first broadcast on John Peel's The Sunday Show in 1970 is Bowie performing the Biff Rose song Buzz the Fuzz.
This next one is a comedy number. This one is written by an American called Biff Rose. Biff Rose is a legendary character now. He lives just outside of San Francisco on a mountain in a cabin. And he's got a bicycle and he writes a lot of songs. And he cycles down from the cabin to do gigs in which he never sings. He never sings at any of his gigs. He just talks about shaving and what he saw on the way down from his cabin. and how many punctures he's had and what have you. And then goes away again, and nobody's really heard him sing, but he does write some good songs, and he's made a couple of LPs. And this is one song. Am I rambling? Sorry. This is one called Buzz the Fuzz. Once there was a fellow, and his name was Buzz. He was just a rookie cop, just a baby Buzz. He patrolled the Sunset Strip in the land of the free and the home of the hip. He protected you and me from evil women like poor Alice D. Alice was the girl that all good hippies dread, and they called her Sweet Alice D-Head. Alice, it was plain to see, was full of pot and STD. She'd attract a great big crowd because her inner peace was much too loud.
I realised for the first time how essential environment is for writing. It all came together because I'd been to the States, and I think from that point onwards it started to become very important that I found environments and towns and cities that really started something up. That wherever I am, I'll be that city for the time that I'm there and for a few months afterwards. And so it kind of pointed to another way that I'd continue working. And that was the first time that a real outside situation had affected me so 100% that it changed my way of writing and changed the way that I looked at things.
London clubber Wendy Kirby was a fashionable wild child whom Bowie befriended at the time of his writing Life on Mars.
He was living in Beckenham at the time that I met him, and I met him in the Sombrero Club. I would describe it as the first in-your-face gay club of its time. I was down there with my flatmate, Freddie Beretti, and we were dancing on the dance floor. This voice assailed us, an American voice. She told us we were fabulous, wonderful, and would we like to come and have a drink of champagne? So Freddie and I carried on dancing, and we just said, yeah, very cool, because we were very beautiful and very arrogant and very young. And I was dancing with Freddie, and he said, is that David Bowie in the corner? And I looked over and I said, yeah, I think it is. I said, shall we go over? And in the end, we decided to go over and have a drink of champagne with the Bowies. David was dressed in a Mr. Fish dress, and he had the long blonde hair, and Angie had the short blonde hair and the long, long legs. And they were really nice people, and we got on like a house on fire.
Well, I had very long hair in those days. I was the first person to get banned on television for having long hair. They made a big thing out of it. It's my own particular form of rebellion. I don't like being like anybody because I'm so much like everybody else. And that's such a downer at times, because one likes to assert one's individuality. I don't want to be a yippie. I don't want to be straight. I just want to be anybody.
During a trip to New York, David Bowie paid a visit to the factory and was inspired by the set of people hanging around Andy Warhol. One of them, whom he would later go on to produce in the studio, was singer Lou Reed.
David had picked up on the fact that Lou Reed had written about all of the people in and around the factory. That stayed in David's memory, and David wrote All the Young Dudes. It was literally David's take on Walk on the Wild Side, and brought in his own disparate characters, Freddie Beretti and Wendy Kirby.
Wendy's stealing clothes from Marks and Sparks, and Freddie's got...
I said to him, oh, why didn't you put Harrods? Why did you put Marks and Spencer's? And he looked so disappointed in me. You know, he'd given me this great kind of name check in this song, and I was ultra cool. If I could go back, I'd say, wait till I tell my mum.
I need a TV when I've got T-Rex. Hey, mister, you guessed, I'm a dude, Dad.
In exploring how Bowie came to write Life on Mars, I was looking for insight into what had influenced him from a close friend who had been a pivotal person at the time, Dana Gillespie.
It was always clear that where his mind was not where he often was, which sounds a bit mad, but, you know, I went once to his parents' house in Bromley. I remember him saying, whatever it takes, I'm going to get out of here. So he always had something to strive for. So when he was living in this, everyone knows the name of Haddon Hall, where he lived there with Angie, he would just be sitting in his little side room and always with the guitar sitting somewhere on the bed and scribbling and writing songs. But God knows where the Mars bit came from. He obviously was very interested in stellar activity, because I remember one time he called me up. He said, look, I've written a new song. I think you should hear it. I'm coming over right now. And he sat down and he played Space Oddity to me. He was in America when, what's that place, Roswell? And he called us, me and Angie, saying, I've seen it. There is an alien here. And he completely convinced us. To this day, I don't know if it's true or not, but he definitely told us it was true then. So he was on another planet, and he stayed on another planet for a long time. And I hope he's on an even better planet now.
He picked up on things he'd seen. He was a big fan of Jacques Brel, sailors fighting on the dance floor. That could have been part of it.
In the port of Amsterdam, there's a sailor who sings of the dreams that he brings from the wide open sea.
His actual, where did he get that from? Maybe disappointment that things aren't actually what they seem. I mean, none of us in the sombrero were what we seemed. It could be also about what you see is not what you get necessarily.
And do you have any idea at all on who the girl with the mousy hair might be?
It wasn't me, and that's for sure. I had platinum blonde hair at the time. I don't know. It could be a pastiche of many sort of ordinary girls he'd met before who were looking for a bit of excitement.
Another person close to Bowie at the time he created Life on Mars was his hands-on music publisher, Bob Grace. He worked for a new company called Chrysalis Music, and the first songwriter he signed was David Bowie. I played him this demo of Life on Mars from an old Chrysalis Music cassette.
It's a simple but small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mother is yelling no, and her father has asked her to go. So her friend is nowhere to be seen, as she walks through a sunken dream to a seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver sea.
So, Bob, how do you feel hearing that after all those years?
Oh, brings back a huge amount of memories. David always was so encouraging because he was so supremely confident that he was going to be an enormous success. There wasn't like any shadow of a doubt. You know, you can hear that song now and we know what's happened to it, but at the time, you know, you're thinking, well, it's a bit left field for a single. What do we do with it? And if he does record it, could he reach that note that he didn't do? And so I wasn't as confident as he was, even though I remembered it as being, you know, a special song.
Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is there life on Mars?
In 1971, Bowie described Life on Mars as a sensitive young girl's reaction to the media.
Nicholas Pegg.
We've got this girl who escapes from her quarrelling parents in some fairly ordinary suburban setting, and she wanders out to the cinema and sits down and loses herself in the world of films. We also get a mention of Greta Garbo in Quicksand, which is one of the other songs, in which he also sings I'm living in a silent film.
I'm closer to the golden dawn, immersed in Crowley's uniform of imagery.
And on the cover photo of Hunky Dory, he looks rather like a sort of hand-tinted lobby card from an old cinema poster of Greta Garbo or Lauren Bacall or something like that.
I guess the idea was to capture that rather camp, iconographic 40s thing, male or female, didn't really matter. I was into Oxford bags, adopting a kind of what I presumed was kind of an Evelyn Waugh Oxbridge look. I'd gone from pre-Raphaelite to Evelyn Waugh.
The lyrics of the song Life on Mars are so well known that we almost take them for granted now. But where did they come from? And did they change in any way? Performer and songwriter Mark Armand reads an extract from an unpublished early draft of the lyrics.
How the hell can we go when we're nowhere in the light of stars? There's a shoulder rock movement and the trembling starts, and a great lord sighs in vain. What can you buy when there's no one to tell you what a bargain you made? Is there life on Mars? It's so completely different. That's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Just a worker and his dog in the pink light, just a savage on half-time. What can he see when there's no one to turn to for the opposite side? Is there life on Mars? Just a laugh and a line, just a joke of the time. It's an evergreen, just a book and a pen and the biggest amen that you've ever seen. He is the man who fell to earth, always looking for an escape, always looking for that other world, always referencing in his songs all the way through his career. He references stars, planets, space oddities, spacemen, space boy, looking at around him for this alienation that he feels around him, and he feels like a lost person on this planet, looking to escape to another planet. Is there life on Mars? Is there something better than this?
There's a man in the funny papers we all know. He lives way back a long time ago. He's the toughest man there is alive, wearing clothes from a wildcat's hide. He's the king of the jungle jive. Look at that caveman go.
Look at Those Cavemen Go is a quotation from a novelty pop single from 1960 called Alley Oop. It was a hit for an American band called the Hollywood Argyles. It went to #1 in the States. It was inspired by a syndicated comic strip, The Adventures of this Caveman called Alley Oop who rides a dinosaur. And how can we not be reminded of 2001: A Space Odyssey? The opening sequence of that film is Look at Those Cavemen Go. Bowie was always habitually dropping in fleeting little resonances, this sort of bricolage of images.
I think it was probably instigated by Lewis Carroll. He used to do cut-ups. Well, this is what I do anyway. This is only one example. If you take some subject matter, so you've got the Berlin Wall and you've got different episodes happening outside of it. You're getting somebody trying to jump over the wall. I'd write a paragraph from the jumper's point of view. I'd write the paragraph from an observer's point of view on this side of the wall, and then an observer's point of view on that side of the wall. So you've got 3 different points of view. And then I cut them up and I reshuffle them and I pull them out in 3 or 4 word phrases and put the parts together. And then from that, I can either take exactly what is laid out and utilise that as a new theme, or I will then resort it out. There are no rules, there are no ground rules. It's a tool of writing, it's a way of writing. I usually complete a song in about, 20 minutes. But I might take 2 or 3 days building up different ideas and approaches to it. The preface to it takes a lot longer than the actual writing. I suppose if there's anything inherent in what I do, there is a style does come through, even though I seem to superficially change such a lot.
Here we go on the track, all right. The deal was really nice. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The most powerful memory I had was the Oh You Pretty Things, which I think was the game changer. We took him over to Radio Luxembourg. While the engineer was tweaking the knobs, David sat at the piano and started playing Oh You Pretty Things. And I said, what's that? He said, I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I didn't have a tape recorder, so I just had to get it out of my head onto the piano so I wouldn't forget it. The day after I was going to the trade fair in Cannes called Midem, I said to David, look, if I can get some action on it there, do you mind if another artist sings this? And he said, no, not at all. So I knew Mickey Most. He was a big producer of artists like Donovan, The Animals, and I played him this song, and he absolutely loved it. He said, I want that to be the debut single to take Herman from being Herman and the Hermits as Peter Noon.
Peter liked the song, and I played piano for him. That's how I want my songs to be distributed by other artists, because I don't sing very well. It's a bleating kind of goat voice, you know, but it pleases me. And if anybody else likes it, it probably pleases them. They can get through my goat singing. But other singers sing my songs very well. I like to hear them singing them.
Oh You Pretty Things was a big hit for Peter Noon, and the song was re-recorded by Bowie for the Hunky Dory album. Another song on that same album that he wrote for his close friend, Dana Gillespie, was Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol used to scream, hang him on my wall. Andy Warhol, silver screen, can't tell them apart at all.
On my version, you can actually hear him playing guitar, his 12-string guitar, and singing in the background. But I always felt a bit kind of odd singing it because of the words. Anyone that knows my music knows that I sing about emotional things and, you know, love affairs and, you know, the men in my life, that kind of thing. And suddenly I'm singing something abstract, whereas he, David, I mean, was always able to sing abstract stuff. But I suppose maybe Andy Warhol was to do with how we were living there, which was a pretty mad lifestyle. But I felt as disjointed as the words are when I was singing it. I'd like to take a cement fix, be a standing cinema, put my friends all for show, see them as they really are.
I'd like to take a cement fix, be a standing cinema, dress my friends up just for show, see them as they really are.
Well, it's not the sort of thing I normally would sing, but I was really happy that he wrote a song for me. What grace, how lovely.
Andy Warhol looks a scream, hang him on my wall. Andy Warhol, silver screen, can't tell them apart at all.
I'm Martin Kemp, and you're listening to Exploring Life on Mars on BBC Radio 2.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I always felt that he was really good at getting, even though he maybe couldn't play the instrument as well as some of his musicians, he knew how to get what they could do and give him what he wanted. He'd leave them space to play how they played, but he'd got the particular musician there because he knew what they could do, and that is as good as being the musician yourself.
I'm Rick Wakeman, and I played on quite a few Bowie tracks, including the piano on Life on Mars. David actually taught me everything I ever needed to know about how to work in the studio. He would rehearse the music up to a certain point, probably about 75%, because he knew that that extra bit of magic would happen in the studio. He was very strict on how we worked. We had good fun and a good laugh, but there was no time wasted. Also, if there was a situation where we'd had about 4 or 5 takes of a track and it wasn't actually working, he'd move on. And he'd go away, work on it, and come back the next day and go, OK, we'll do that track again, and this time we're just going to do that. And invariably, it was right.
The album Hunky Dory was recorded in the summer of 1971 at Trident Studios in London, Soho. Trident was the red-hot studio of the day and the very first to have an 8-track recording facility. Everyone recorded there, from the Beatles with Hey Jude to Mark Bolan, Elton John and, of course, David Bowie. Bowie came in with his small band of musicians, which included Woody Woodmansey on drums, Trevor Bolder on bass, and on guitar, mellotron and backing vocals was the brilliant Mick Ronson. Bowie recalls his first encounter with Ronno.
I do remember a very early meeting where I was strumming along and singing Mick my songs, and Mick was playing little lead guitar breaks off my sort of strumming. I just thought that he was going to be wonderful. And the moment he switched his amp on, it was all over. I thought, this is my Jeff Beck. This guy is really hot. This is a great guitar player. I think he thought I was a bit weird and arty, but he liked the songs. He realised that I was writing in earnest, and I believed in my material, and I think he was really willing to go with it.
And here's Ronno talking in May 1991 about how David Bowie pushed him in new directions in the studio.
You know, I read and write music. We were talking to Dana Gillespie one night. We was having dinner, and Dana's going to go into the studio, and she said, "Oh, I need an arranger, you know. I want a string section and things." And David said, "Oh, Mick does that, you know, he'll do that." I'd never done it before in my life, you know. So I wrote some string arrangements. David would always say, "OK, well, you know, Mick will take care of that. You go to the studio, you set it up, you do this, you do that." He was pushing me into areas that I hadn't been in before. A lot of respect for him for that, you know.
Ronno really wanted to be a record producer himself. He was always a normal, lovely bloke, is the right word for him. Very straight, very correct, very workhorse, no sort of bull. He just did what he did. And I always felt that he wasn't that nuts about having to get dressed up in spingly-spangly outfits with makeup. That wasn't really him. I mean, he's from Hull, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and some of the things we did in the studio, it was a song for Bob Dylan. Sat in a couple of chairs in the studio and said, like, well, all right, let's play this number, and then you'd play it and figure out what he was going to play, and then you just do it, you know. It's like a real spontaneous thing. It wasn't rehearsed or anything. It was done right there and then in the studio.
You're right for the first bit, Dave, you know. It's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Zimmerman, I wrote a song for you about a strange young man called Dylan with a voice like sand and glue. Some words had truthful vengeance that could pin us to the floor. Brought a few more people on and put the fear in a whole lot more.
I'm just leaving Wardour Street and I'm going down a little alley and it's called St Anne's Court. It's all bustling and full of people. You can tell that it's definitely got a sort of a seedier side. But here there's a really special door and I'm just going to push it open and it's got these big wooden slats and glass, and behind this door some of the most amazing recordings of all time have been made, and it's called Trident Studios.
I'm Ray Stuff. I'm a mastering engineer, and I started my career here at Trident Studios back in 1970. I was first presented with Life on Mars as part of the complete album. It's just that first note on the Trident piano every time just takes me straight back to that first time I've heard it. It just sets the tone and ambience for the whole song coming through, and yeah, it's just that sends a sort of almost like a chill down your spine, you know, for memories.
My name is Ken Scott. I'm a record producer, recording engineer. David was absolutely the true professional in the studio. He got bored very quickly, so everyone had to be They had to get their act together very quickly, the other musicians. David and I were very, I think, apprehensive to start with, because neither of us had really produced before. As it went on and things started to work and it started to bloom into what it did, we became more and more confident, and we knew what each other was going to do.
David is, at that particular time, and I think subsequent in his career, was known for being a one-take vocalist.
I co-produced 4 albums with him, and 95% of the vocals that I did with him were first take, beginning to end. I would get the level, I'd start the tape rolling in record, and what he did, that one performance, is what you still hear today. It is so much from inside him. It was him performing and what he felt, and he just got totally into it every time.
As I ask you to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show.
I think he found the right match there with Ken Scott, and they were able to basically co-produce. And Ken helped David to achieve the sound that he wanted.
Music publisher Bob Grace.
So I'd actually make myself pretty scarce, because you go along, but they were working, you know. I'll make sure everyone's happy, and then I'll go along later on and hear the mixes and things like that. But in the meantime, it was just work, work, work. The most focused man I think I've ever met.
When it came to pretty much the end of that recording period, they had an album that they realised that it needed something. There wasn't a particular high point. For David then to go away and find from in himself this amazing song, obviously you take Life on Mars away from that album now. It's such an important song. We know that that meeting with Ken Scott would have been mid-July, because on the 14th of July, a letter was sent from Jen, David's management, to Dudley Moore to invite him to play piano on a special piece of music, and everything else was in the can by then. As it transpires, there isn't anywhere on file a response from Dudley Moore, so Rick was rightly called back in the studio and obviously did a masterful job. In retrospect, I wonder what that would have sounded like, Dudley Moore playing Life on Mars.
It all started to happen in earnest for Bowie in the summer of 1971, around the time of his writing Life on Mars. He made 2 notable live performances. One was a BBC in concert recording, and the other was the legendary live appearance at the Glastonbury Fair. Bowie's music publisher, Bob Grace, was there at both those pivotal events.
I booked him onto the in concert because the producer, Jeff Griffin, was a friend of mine, and it's a live audience in the BBC radio theatre called the Paris. David hadn't sung in public for a long time, and you have to do, I don't know, half an hour, 40-minute show, and he lost his voice. It literally it died completely about 2/3 of the way through. And he was inconsolable afterwards. I went out to the pub by it called the Captain's Cabin, and I was sitting there with this sobbing guy on my shoulder. He really thought his career was at an end, that the BBC would never play anything of his again. He'd let everybody down. In fact, Jeff Griffin was brilliant. He said, these things happen. It's okay, we can edit it out. It's going to be fine. But he really was distraught about that.
Well, unless I'm very much mistaken, this is another programme, another concert from the BBC in London. My name's John Peel, and you're going to hear the music of David Bowie and a galaxy of his friends.
I'd been listening to a Neil Young album, and they phoned through and said that my wife had had a baby on Sunday morning, and I wrote this about the baby. It's called Kooks, K-O-O-K-S. I'm not too sure of the words because it is new, so have a go at it.
Story. If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you.
We went down by train to Glastonbury, and he did the sunrise concert at about 5 o'clock in the morning in front of a lot of hippies having breakfasting and macrobiotic food. It was a small audience, but it was him getting back on that stage and getting over the the BBC kind of fiasco thing and getting out and performing again, it sort of started him on that route.
And if you ever have to go to school, remember what they did to this old fool. Don't pick fights with the bullies or the cats. I'm not much cop at punching other people's dads. And if the homework brings you down, then we'll throw it on the fire and take the car downtown. And we'll watch the crazy people race around. Will you stay and I love a story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing.
At the time, David, his star was on the rise. And I used to go to a club called the Candy Box. Well, one night I was sitting alone in the Candy Box and the bouncer came down. He said to me, "Wendy," he said, "there's some pop star outside. He wants you to sign him in." So anyway, I went upstairs and there was David on his own in his moon boots and a little blue plastic jacket. So I signed him in and we went down and we sat in this booth, and David seemed really sad. I think he cried. I can't remember what was wrong with him. We were very interested in glamour and front, but there was a little bit of sadness behind it all, and I saw it that night with David. I mean, he bounced back and to being David Bowie, but I saw a little glimpse of vulnerability that I don't think many people see.
Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. It's gonna have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time.
Hunky Dory was released on the 17th of December 1971. Strangely, Life on Mars wasn't chosen as the first single. They chose Changes, probably because it was catchier, more contemporary. However, Life on Mars was such an important song, especially after Bowie had been performing it during his live concert tours, that some 18 months later, on the 22nd of June 1973, it was released as a single.
It reminded people, or even introduced people, to Hunky Dory that had no idea that, quite honestly, that the guy that was Ziggy Stardust and Lan Hussein, had this long hair and had been somebody completely different before, There was much more than one David Bowie.
During the course of rehearsals, Mike Garson, who is the pianist with the Spiders, played an arrangement of his own of Life on Mars, which incidentally is number 4 today. David Bowie, ladies and gentlemen, was so knocked out with Mike's arrangement, he thought you might like to hear them. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from New York, Mike Garson.
I was privileged to meet David Bowie in 1972, an audition at RCA in New York. Mick Ronson had me play the song Changes, and I played for about 8 seconds, and then he said, "You have the gig," and I said, "I didn't even start to play yet," and he said, "I can tell I play piano too," and that was it. I was hired for 8 weeks, and I ended up being the longest musician with him, did his first American concert and his last American concert. Rick Wakeman's did the definitive version that everybody knows, but I played the song 200 times live with David. My challenge was always to make it fresh, and to David's incredible credit, he allowed this. One in Paris in 1999, that was phenomenal.
It's a god-awful small affair to see the girl with the mousy hair, and her mommy is yelling no, and her father has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen as she walks through a sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a saddening bore, 'cause she's lived it 10 times or more. It's about to be lived again, as they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if he'll ever know. He's in the best-selling show. Is there life on on America's tortured ground? Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow, and the workers have struck for fine, 'cause Lennon's on sale again. See the mice in their million hordes, from Ibiza to the Norfolk Broads. Rule Britannia is out of bounds, to my mother, my dog and clowns. But the film is a saddening bore, 'cause I wrote it 10 times or more. It's about to be writ again, as they ask me to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if he'll ever know. He's in this best-selling show. Is there life on
Acclaimed photographer Mick Rock, now living in New York, directed 4 music videos for David Bowie. He got a phone call in June 1973 from Bowie.
What do you think, Mick? Can we do a video, Mick? Well, you know. But of course, in those days, we knew how to move fast, and the lack of cash didn't get in the way. I took one look at David, and he was there in that amazing turquoise suit that Freddie Baratti had made for him.
Both David and Freddie were skinny men. I look back at old photos and I think, did they ever eat? I can't think of many men that could have worn Freddie's clothes, because they were very outrageous, very extravagant. I think you had to have a bit of a diva about you, and David certainly was a diva.
And then Pierre Laroche showed up and did this beautiful makeup. So I took one look and I thought, we're just going to shoot the bugger. And we did. It was just him on a white background looking resplendent. I mean, he always looked fantastic, but there was something about the way he looked that day that my stroke of genius was not doing too much.
Performer and songwriter Mark Armand.
It's that musicality, a bigger kind of more of a traditional storytelling song, of a European feeling song that so many different people have covered it. It gives you kind of an easy access to David Bowie's songs, if you like, and it's been covered from everyone from Neil Hannon to Lords to Michael Ball. And I came to really appreciate, and I became to kind of love this song.
See the mice in their million hordes, from Ibiza to the Norfolk Broads. Rule Britannia is out of bounds. To my mother, my dog and clowns. But the film is a sad thing more, 'cause I wrote it 10 times or more. It's about to be written again, so I ask you to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go in the best-selling show.
One of Bowie's often stated earliest ambitions was to write a musical. He finally got his wish when Lazarus opened in December 2015 in New York. 15-year-old Sophia Ann Caruso sang Life on Mars, both in the New York and London productions.
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair. I think it's especially poignant, I guess, now with everything that's going on in America, like the lyrics. It's on America's tortured brow that Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow. The whole song for me and my character in Lazarus, it's about how, well, shitty the world is. And is there life on Mars? Because, like, hell, let's go, you know?
The film is a saddening bore, for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools if they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall.
Working on Lazarus the first time around, David was there in rehearsals sometimes, and I do remember I got a note from him when I hit the first Life on Mars, the big one, to do like a little like fall off, like sort of Mars, like that. So I remember that was one thing that he gave me advice on with the song, but I think he sort of just let me have free reign.
Is there life on
When David Bowie died, of course there was a flood of tribute performances. A young organ scholar called Nicholas Freestone at St Albans Cathedral played Life on Mars on the organ. It was posted on the internet and it went viral. It was seen by millions. There was something so profoundly moving about it.
David Bowie wrote more than 500 songs, an unbelievably rich legacy to explore for generations to come. But none, I think you'll agree, quite touched the Bowie genius that is Life on Mars. I'm Martin Kemp, and many thanks to everyone who took part in this programme, and to my co-presenter and producer, Tris Penner. Exploring Life on Mars is a Sue Clark production.
What the heck is happening at the end? There's a phone ringing and someone is saying, can I have a cup of tea or...
Oh, no. There's nothing about tea on the end of Life on Mars. OK, the way it goes, it was going great. This was going to be the one. But unfortunately, right by the side of the piano, there was a toilet. And in that toilet was a public phone. Someone got a wrong number and called in halfway through that great take, and we had to stop it. And Ronno is cursing and swearing about it. I then rolled back to the beginning of the tape and started to record again. We got the master, finally. It wasn't until we put the strings on, and they're sustaining at the end, so they go longer than we'd ever really listened before. And as they're going, we suddenly hear this piano come back in, and then we hear the phone ring, and Ronno swearing. We've got to keep this is just too good. Of course, I had to pull it out really fast because the Beeb would never play what Ronno was saying.
What? That's why. Fucking bastard. Ah, oh, for fuck's sake.